You may think you are not the best candidate, but God is using you to build his kingdom. We may face discrimination because of our age. We may be stereotyped and overlooked because of our gender, race, or income. We may be excluded because we are Christians or different. You may be criticized by people because you're smart, good looking, and they think that you're all that. But when God has a plan for your life, no weapon formed against you will prosper. God knows exactly what you are going through, and he wants us to have faith in him. So the first point I would like to make is trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Trusting God means to have faith in him, believe what he says, fully depend on him, and have confidence in him. Trusting God is not like a buffet where we can pick and choose what we want. It is a matter of faith. To walk by faith means to take God at his word and then completely rely on him in spite of what we see, how we feel, what may happen, or what makes sense. When we live by faith, we glorify God. We build our Christian character and set an example to others. Think about that one area of your life that's very difficult for you to depend on God. And I'm sure all of us had an answer to come up right away. It reminds me of the game show Family Feud. If this question was on Family Feud and we were up at the buzzer, and the number one answer will probably be money. It's very difficult for us to trust God when it comes to money. But God says that he will provide our every need. So we can trust him and we can rely on him when it comes to money. And I got a good, clear insight from children, particularly during children's church. The Lord brought to my attention a little issue that was coming up, that the collection plate or the offering was a little low because many of the children was running to the bookstore buying chips and Rice Krispie treats. And I said to them, boys and girls, what message do you think that's telling God? How do you think that makes God feel? And it took out of the mouth of a 4-year-old to say, that makes God feel very sad. And so we can apply that to our own lives, that we can trust God with anything because he will provide our every need. And another area is probably when it comes to making decisions. We want to know very quickly, God, Lord, what is this outcome going to be? Is my situation going to change? God, sometimes it feels that you're quiet or you're moving too slow. I can just easily come up with a quicker and faster answer. Wrong. Sometimes it may seem like God is too mysterious and confusing by giving us so many choices, like a multiple choice quiz, instead of just telling us the correct answer. Perhaps it's hard for you to trust God because people or life have caused you to develop trust issues. Regardless of the reason, when we refuse to trust God, we are dishonoring him. When we fully rely and have confidence in God, we are glorifying him. And so this woman, Naomi, receives news that the famine is over and God has provided food for the town of Bethlehem. However, she is in a desperate situation. If she goes back home to Bethlehem, things may not be the same. If she stays in Moab, she definitely has no blood relatives. She only has Ruth and Orpah, her daughters-in-law, and they have no obligation to take care of her. Yet Naomi trusts God and prepares to return home to Bethlehem. Orpah chooses to stay in Moab, but Ruth begs to leave Moab to go with Naomi to Bethlehem. By going with Naomi, Ruth was giving up a lot, y'all. She was taking a huge risk. She was giving up the possibility of marriage, financial security from a husband, and having children just to stand by her mother-in-law's side. And also, Ruth was very courageous because she knew in Bethlehem she would face discrimination. She knew she would face criticism because she was of a different race. She was a woman and she was widowed. However, Ruth's devotion to God was so real that against her own understanding, she trusted the Lord and left with her mother-in-law to Bethlehem. And as they arrived in Bethlehem, the harvest was beginning. And this is good news because whether they knew it or not, the Lord was beginning to turn things around for them. The people now had food to eat, and workers could get paid to harvest crops. And the Israelites, they had a form of a welfare system. And their welfare system was called gleaning. And the law demanded that the corners of the field are not harvested so that food would be left over for the poor people to gather what they need. So Ruth went to work gleaning to get food. And this job was exhausting. It was degrading. And I know it was hot outside and it took all day to finish. And not only that, Ruth had to wait until all the workers harvested their crops first, which I know that they received the best picks. So once all of the shifts were done, she was in the last group, the very last group of gleaning the leftover field. And even though Ruth had to work hard, she was humble. And she did what she had to do to take care of her mother-in-law and herself. But God is working it out. And God is working it out in your life too. As it turned out, this is so sweet, y'all. As it turned out, Ruth found herself working in a field belonging to a man named Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Boaz was a good man, respected by many people. And so Boaz, he approaches Ruth and he tells her she does not have to go to any other fields. She can gather food from his field. And then he lets his workers know to drop some of the grain in her path. And I'm glad y'all clapping on that part, because I know the blessing of having a good man. Ladies, if you have a good man, just take a second and praise the Lord and clap with me. And you know, you can get a lot of good tips from this story. Boaz, he lets his intentions be known that he is very interested in Ruth and he wants her to be his wife. He isn't trying to be a player or have a 10-year engagement or be her baby daddy. And we can also gather some stuff from Ruth too. She gives her attention and heart to a good man and not some fool looking for a woman to take care of him. Somebody tell me, say it again. And not some fool looking for a woman to take care of him. Your mama can take care of you. I'm not. I'm teasing. I'll take care of you, Mel. If I know what's good for me, I'll take care of him. Also, Ruth, she's not desperately chasing after him. And I know how it can feel sometimes. Women, ladies, we get stressed or depressed thinking there aren't good men. But there are some good men. Just don't expect them to be tall, dark, light, handsome, with pearly white teeth, making 6 figures, driving a Beamer, and, all these other expectations. And definitely don't get any advice from these reality shows, because they are a hot mess. So Ruth and Boaz gives us a beautiful picture of love, and they get married. They love, honor, and respect each other. So trust in the Lord with all of your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Then my second point is, in all your ways acknowledge him. Ruth was not even the ideal candidate. She was from Moab, a nation that was not a part of God's covenant family. Yet God accepted her because she acknowledged and worshiped him as the one and only true God. You may think you are not the best candidate, but God is using you to build his kingdom. We may face discrimination because of our age. We may be stereotyped and overlooked because of our gender, race, or income. We may be excluded because we are Christians or different. You may be criticized by people because you're smart, good looking, and they think that you think that you're all that. But when God has a plan for your life, no weapon formed against you will prosper.